go yet? Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming. I'm Kathy Manis with the Strathroy and District Chamber of Commerce. We are at the Senior Centre for the All Candidates Debate, and I'd like to welcome you all here. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions in advance to us. That was a great feedback that we got from everybody. I'd like to introduce our moderators. Okay. So I'd like to thank all our moderators here. We've got Chris Soares with the MyFM with the Soaresy Show, the host there, and Lorena Dixon with CJBK and the host of What's Up Strathroy. The election is June 7th. Be sure to get out and vote.
Yeah, and just a reminder for those of you who think these mics are hooked up to the Senior Centre, they're for the television. So we're going to ask our candidates right now to speak nice and loud, all right, gentlemen? Perfect. All right, Lorena.
But first, we would like to hear from Wendy Redan, and she is Mike Redan's wife, letting us know passing regrets for him not being here. He's the Liberal candidate. So Wendy, if you'd like to share that information with us, thanks.
Hi, I am not here to speak for Mike in any capacity. I am just here to extend regrets. Unfortunately, due to the very short time that Mike has had the candidacy, he has previous commitments which he's choosing to honor. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so this is how it's going to go this evening. We're going to be going for about an hour. All the candidates are going to be opening up with statements for 2 minutes, and then we're going to ask them a bunch of questions. We're going to rotate with which candidate gets to answer the question first. All other candidates will get a 30-second rebuttal if they choose to have it. And then the original candidate who started that question will also get a rebuttal. So at the most, we'll have about 2.5 minutes per question. At the end, with about 8 to 10 minutes to go in our time, allocated time today, we'll do closing statements for 2 minutes in reverse order of how they're sitting. All right? So let's get going right now with opening statements for 2 minutes. And actually, I'd like to introduce our panel. If even though they have name tags, I'd like to introduce them. To my immediate left, we have Anthony Lee representing the Green Party. Representing the NDP, we have Todd Case. We have representing the PC Party, our incumbent Monty McNaughton. And representing the Trillium Party, we have Brian Everett. A round of applause for our candidates. All right, so 2 minutes opening statements, gentlemen, and we'll start with Anthony Lee. And just one more thing that I just remembered. On the individual questions, the gentleman will get a vocal 10-second warning, and then they'll hear that when their time's up, and then we'll move along. I think we've captured everything, haven't we?
So.
All right, so let's go with the 2 minute opening statements, and we'll start with Anthony.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Lee. I'd like to thank the Strathroy and District Chamber of Commerce for the invite today. So I'm a student at Western University. I'm studying medical sciences and financial economics, and I have a passion in giving back to the community by volunteering in whichever one I'm in. I'm also an advocate for youth governance. The youth of today will be the leaders of tomorrow. So my volunteering experience is vast and interdisciplinary, from the Red Cross, mental health institutions, community centers, to hospitals, the Special Olympics program, and retirement homes. It really gives me pleasure to be able to contribute to the well-being of a community. I also have considerable experience in youth governance as well. I sit on the National Youth Advisory Council of Plan International Canada as a provincial representative. Last year, I traveled with Plan to the United Nations headquarters in New York, to attend the 61st Statute Commission of Women. I also sit on the board of directors of Leeds Employment Services. This is an employment agency that caters towards southwestern Ontario and provides services to individuals with disabilities. I'm the youngest director in the history of the organization, and the next youngest is near double my age. Finally, I sit on the board of directors of the Western University Students' Council, where I was also elected chair of the Finance Committee. This has given me a lot of experience in terms of community linkage. So the Green Party of Ontario has had little presence in Lambton-Kent-Middlesex, which is why I have stepped up to advocate for the party and its values. Our vision has 3 main points. We stand for jobs, ensuring that we have a sustainable, renewable, and equitable economy. We stand for people, ensuring that we have healthcare and education at the quantity and quality needed in all communities, while also addressing social inequalities, and also making sure that we have affordable and accessible housing. And finally, we stand for the planet. We have one Earth, and it's important to adopt sustainable practices for the next generation. My name is Anthony Lee. I stand for these values, and this is why I'm running in this election. Youth like me will be the future of Canada in the future. It's a pleasure to be able to attend this debate. I look forward to future discussion. Thank you for your time.
And now we'd like to hear the opening statements from Todd Case with the NDP.
All right. Thank you very much. Hello, my name is Todd Case, and I'm the mayor of Warwick Township and have been the mayor for the past 18 years. I've also had 4 years as Lambton County Warden, as well as I've been chair of the Ontario Western Wardens Caucus twice in my time in politics. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm no stranger to Queen's Park. I'm a fighter for rural Ontario. I'm running for Andrew Horwath in the Ontario NDP because there is a disconnect between Kathleen Wynne's Liberal government and rural Ontario. Andrew Horwath and the Ontario NDP are committed to showing Toronto that small town and rural Ontario matters. We will invest in local health care by keeping our small town hospitals open. We're the only party with a plan to introduce universal drug and dental coverage. We're the only party with a plan to bring down hydro rates for rural Ontario by eliminating unfair rural delivery charges and ending mandatory time of use pricing, because we know farmers can't choose when to operate. Doug Ford wants to keep Kathleen Wynne's hydro plan in place. That will see your bills increase by another 70% right after the election. Doug Ford has promised to leave no stone unturned when it comes to privatization, and that means he will privatize and cut your health care. That's just going to make things worse, ladies and gentlemen. We are committed to expanding and protecting public health care in Ontario. We will commit $1 billion to rural broadband, expand access to natural gas, and increase the arbitrary cap on the risk management program. We are the only party that will stop our rural schools from closing because we understand how important those schools are to our communities. And to do all this, we're going to make sure that the most profitable corporations and the wealthiest Ontarians pay their fair share. It's time for Ontario to stop switching back and forth between Liberals and Conservatives. Stop choosing between bad and worse. Andrew Horwath is running for Premier to bring change for the better in Ontario, and we are in it to win it. My name is Todd Case, and I would appreciate your support on June 7th.
Now representing the PC party, opening statements from Monty McGowan.
Well, thank you very much to the Strathroy District Chamber of Commerce for hosting us tonight. Thank you to the moderators. I was fortunate before I was elected in 2011 to serve as president of this Chamber of Commerce, so I appreciate the advocacy that the Chamber does on behalf of small businesses and farms in our community. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve Lambton-Kent-Middlesex for the last 7 years at Queen's Park. This election is the most critical in the province's history. We are desperate for change in Ontario. We are now spending $1 billion every single month just on interest payments alone. The debt is now $325 billion. Hydro rates, largely because of the Green Energy Act, have become the most expensive in all of Canada. We've lost 300,000 well-paying manufacturing jobs. Our PC party is the only ones who will make life more affordable, balance the budget, and ensure good jobs are created. While the other parties are promising free this and free that and expanded government, we have set priorities. We will scrap the Liberals' NDP cap-and-trade carbon tax. We will reduce gasoline by 10 cents a litre. We will scrap the Green Energy Act and lower hydro bills and stop building wind turbines. We will eliminate income taxes for anyone earning $29,000 and less. And we will begin the process of getting government living within its means. If we continue down the path that we are on, taxes are going to continue going up, hydro rates will continue to climb, and life will become even more unaffordable for families and businesses in the province. And we will burden future generations with ever-growing debt. We need change on June 7th, 3 weeks from today, and I ask for your support.
Now we'd like to hear from Ryan Everett with the Trillium Party.
Okay. Hi, everybody. First, I'd like to thank the Strathroy District Chamber of Commerce for hosting the debate tonight. I'd also like to thank everybody for attending the debate, so we have the opportunity to hear your concerns and questions for Strathroy and Lambton-Kent-Middlesex. My name's Brian Everett, and I'm with the Trillium Party. I'm the Trillium Party candidate for Lambton-Kent-Middlesex. I'm from Walsburg, Ontario, and I've been an iron worker with Local 700 out of Windsor for 20 years. I'm here today to ensure that the constituents of Lambton-Kent-Middlesex have a voice, and a true voice. Currently, the political parties have wreaked havoc on the province of Ontario. MPPs outside of the Trillium Party who wish to do well for their constituents are forced to vote and toe the party line. This process must stop. It's time to make a real change in Queen's Park. The Trillium Party offers that change by involving you, the constituents, in the voting process. The people decide, not the bureaucrats. The guiding principle of the Trillium Party is one that all policies come from the people of Ontario. Trillium MPPs are encouraged to speak freely on behalf of constituents, and they listen to their constituents and act accordingly. Trillium MPPs work for you. The election's upon us, and you have a choice. Ask yourself who you trust to speak truth for you on June 7th. I have no whip, no old boys club handlers, just direct advice and the wishes of the people. I promise to always listen and fight for the issues of Lambton-Kent-Middlesex and Queen's Park. Please allow me to be your voice by electing me as your MPP this June. Thanks again, and I look forward to taking the questions.
We're going to direct our first question to Anthony Lee with the Green Party. Anthony, finding quality childcare that is safe and affordable is an important thing for many parents. What will your party do to help parents?
Thank you for that question. Absolutely. It's very important in terms of new mothers and current mothers trying to sustain, trying to work and try to sustain an entire household. In this economy right now, it's very hard to live. So what our party will do is we're looking at increasing the, completely increasing the funding in terms of individuals with the number of children they have, and then also ensuring that we implement proper programming and funding strategies such that all the needs can be met.
Yeah, the mics. Yeah, the mics are for the television broadcast, and the gentleman will try and speak louder for you, sir. Appreciate it. All right. So no rebuttals on that first question. So we'll go to the second question. Will be directed to NDP Representative Todd Case. Individuals who work minimum wage jobs are struggling to make ends meet, working multiple jobs and experiencing precarious employment situations. What will your party do to help these families? 1 minute.
So make it very clear, the NDP stands for a $15 an hour minimum wage, period. It's important that people that are out there in the workforce to be able to at least find a way to somehow make ends meet. So we very much support the $15 an hour minimum wage. And again, unlike the party sitting beside me, we will put that minimum wage up to $15 an hour on January 1st, 2019.
We have Brian Everard first for the rebuttal for 30 seconds. Go ahead, Brian.
The Trillium Party believes strongly that the stress on business by rushing the minimum wages is way too much. We've seen a lot of people losing their jobs recently because this has happened. The policy that we have is we're not going to take back the 14, but we're not going to the 15. Seconds. We're just not doing it. It's too stressful for small business.
Thank you, Brian. We also have a rebuttal for Monty McNaughton, 30 seconds.
Well, it's interesting. We will leave the minimum wage at $14, but what we've said to strike a better balance between small businesses and farmers and employees is we will eliminate the income tax for anybody that's earning $29,000 or under, which will save almost $1,000 a year. On January the 1st, minimum wage went up to $14 an hour. As of January 31st in Ontario, we lost 50,000 jobs. So going from $11.60 to $15 almost overnight has really caused stress on the local businesses. So I think our approach is more reasonable.
Thank you.
And Todd, you want to
yes,
final rebuttal?
So let's be clear that the tax rebate that the PCs are talking about actually still puts less money in the pockets of these individuals. That $15 an hour goes further. There's more dollars in the pockets of the individuals at the end of the day. I just want to make that very clear.
Thank you.
And our next question is for Progressive Conservative candidate Monty McNaughton. A lot of buzz in this campaign talks about Toronto and the GTA transit, but the rest of Ontario needs accessible regional transit options as well. How will you address this?
Well, thank you very much. Very important question. Last year, I hosted 3 roundtables on rural poverty in our riding, one in Strathroy, one in Wallaceburg, and actually one sort of just outside the riding of Petrolia. And the number one issue we heard is that people can't get to agencies that help them because there's no rural transportation. So what our leader is committed to in our party is that we'll restore the OMPF funding. So it's funding from the province to rural municipalities that have been cut back by the Liberal government. It's $70 million per year. Local municipalities can use that for transportation, for infrastructure, or whatever they so choose.
Yeah, very good question. So when it comes to transit in the rural areas, it is a problem. There's no doubt about it. Everybody's forced to go to the larger hospitals, making it tough for people to get there unless they have a family member that can drive them. We too are going to put the OMPF money back, but we're going to put it back, not just in the urban communities where it is now, but also in the small rural communities where it's actually been gone for quite some time. So we're going to put the money back into small town rural Ontario municipalities, not just large urban.
Okay, very good. All right, question number 4. This will be directed to Trillium Party Representative Brian Everard. What is your party's proposed approach to financing for local municipal infrastructure? Brian, for 1 minute.
We consider corporate welfare not something that we like, and we figure that we can save a ton of money for municipalities and bring some of that money back into the smaller communities, especially in rural Ontario. Some of that would be slated for health care for the elderly, but also our policy is to move a bunch of the money. We've seen a business, local, not very local, but fairly local business get a $250 million corporate welfare grant from the Liberals, both province of Ontario and federal government, and they had a $22 billion profit. I think that that's insane. And the Trillium Party thinks that we can bring a lot of that money back to the smaller communities, and we're going to do that. And we're going to let them have at it with that money themselves instead of dictating where it goes, and let the people locally decide.
Thank you, Brian. No rebuttals on that question, are there?
No.
Okay, so we'll go to the...
So the next question is for Anthony. The PC leader has indicated that he will scrap Ontario's updated sexual education curriculum. What are your party's plans for this? And if it is to remove the curriculum, what will your party provide instead?
Thank you for that question. Sorry. Thank you for that question. Is this better? Awesome. Thank you for that question. The Green Party has not had any issues with the sexual curriculum and is not planning on doing any major changes to it as of yet.
All right, yep. Brian?
The Trillium Party wants to allow parents to wade in to the sex ed curriculum. What we found is we're not saying whether it's right or it's wrong, but the way that it was brought in and implemented, it was forced as far as we are concerned as a party, and there's plenty of parents that have approached members of the Trillium Party. I'm knocking on doors and I'm hearing it all the time. We need to allow the parents to have a say and a vote. So we'd like to put it back to the parents. If they keep it, they keep it. If they don't, they don't. We'll work something else out.
And Monty?
Sure. We have said that quite clearly. In fact, we're talking about reforming the education system in Ontario. So we've said that we're going to scrap Discovery Math. I know there's a lot of parents across the region that talk to me that the kids aren't even learning, in some cases, multiplication tables in the classroom today. When it comes to the health curriculum,
10 seconds.
We have said that we're going to respect parents. We're going to do meaningful province-wide consultation with parents and have them give input.
Thank you. Our next question is for NDP Representative Todd Case. To the NDP candidate, your leaders speak of increases in services for Ontarians. Given that the province is already in a deficit situation, how will these be funded? For 1 minute, Todd.
So in my opening remarks, I made it very clear that we are going to tax the most profitable corporations in the province, also the most wealthiest Ontarians. We're talking about another 1% in taxation for people that make over $220,000, and also to the most profitable corporations as well. It's time that they pay their share, and that's how we would help fund those initiatives.
Brian, on a rebuttal.
I have to say that there's a page 11 in the platform for the NDP states that they're going to make a sanctuary province out of Ontario. We have a huge burden on our system right now, $315+ billion in debt. I'd like a definition of what sanctuary is, and because I'm hearing a whole bunch of different things, and I need a definition of what it is. I'd like to hear that today.
Thank you. Monty, did you?
I did.
I thought Monty you had raised your hand before,
yeah.
Todd, so go ahead, Monty, for 30.
Look, we've lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs in Ontario, many in our own community. 10 years ago, almost every town and village in this riding had a factory. Today they're gone. If we have one of the other parties, main parties in government, they're promising to run deficits forever. The debt is $325 billion. By 2020, it's going to be $350 billion. And we need to hang an open for business sign up in Ontario. And that starts with government taking a pro-business and pro-growth attitude to creating jobs so people in our communities have meaningful work.
Thank you. And Todd, for the final rebuttal.
So let's be clear, the NDP is the only party that has a true platform, a costed platform that includes everything that we talk about on a daily basis. Mr. Ford and the Conservatives have no platform. They have no costed platform. It's a poof of smoke that comes out of the leader's mouth day to day with no costing and no accountability.
What's a sanctuary?
Thank you. Go ahead, Lorraine.
You didn't answer the question.
Are we going to give someone time to? No? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I will be happy to answer the question, sir.
Yeah.
It's up to the moderator.
I think people are probably wondering if they aren't familiar with it, if that's all right. Yeah.
So first off, that's absolutely not true. What we're saying, the core values of anybody that lives in Ontario, if somebody comes to one of our hospitals and needs assistance, we don't turn them away. We in Ontario are the kind of people that when somebody's in need and they come to one of our hospitals, we look after them. Plain and simple. As far as the other part of the question, it's absolutely not true, but I'll make that comment because we firmly believe in that, and I firmly believe in that.
Okay. Our next question is for Monty. And it actually is a question for you specifically from the public. To the PC candidate, your leader speaks extensively about finding efficiencies, but has provided very few details. Can you explain where these efficiencies will come from? Will people lose their jobs? Will there be services cut?
Well, look, we're spending $140 billion in the province of Ontario every single year. It's about government setting priorities. We've seen in the last number of years the e-health scandal to the tune of $8 billion, using taxpayers' money to relocate a couple of gas plants to save a couple Liberal seats in the last election. The Drive Clean program, we're going to scrap the Drive Clean program if we win the election. That's about $70 million. The Auditor General, in her last report, went through 14 government programs, and she identified $1 billion worth of savings, 0 job losses in the public sector. It can be done.
So Mr. Ford announced today, I believe it was yesterday, a 10-cent reduction in fuel, which the price tag to that money is $1.2 billion. Mr. Ford has announced a lot of initiatives the last little while. And again, all I'm doing is I'm asking Mr. Ford to come clean and clear Ontario voters and have a true platform that is entirely costed. So people really have a choice and understanding of what each party stands for in the financial aspects.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is for Brian from the Trillium Party. The cost of energy is a concern for rural families and businesses. How does your party's platform respond to this? For 1 minute.
Well, we want to scrap the carbon tax. In fact, our MPP in the legislature brought forth a bill, a fair energy bill, and he was removed from the legislature by the Speaker because he said some comments that weren't permitted. But the bill had in it that they had to match any low prices of energy that were sold across, or we're paying to get rid of our hydro. I think that we need to look at what the deals have been done, like you look at the gas plants, different things. We have plants that are sitting idle that are not producing energy that we're paying for. Some of them are $80,000 a day. So this adds up, and it adds up big time. So there's a whole stock of issues that are going on with the energy issue. Another thing is we're not utilizing our hydro, which means Niagara Falls, like we should be. So we'd like to fix that and get that back online as well.
Monty on a rebuttal.
Well, I just wanted to make it clear when Brian said his MPP, he didn't mean me. He meant the Trillium Party MPP who was ejected from the legislature.
Right,
Just so everyone-
wasn't Monty. It was Jack McLaren.
I just wanted to say we've been crystal clear. We're the only, of the three major parties, we're the only ones that are going to scrap the Green Energy Act. We're done continuing to build wind turbines across the province. The Green Energy Act. The Green Energy Act is the single biggest reason why hydro bills have gone up. They've paid massive subsidies. It's all of our hard-earned money. We're going to stop it.
Thank you. Anthony on a rebuttal.
The Green Party of Ontario also does not support the current version of the Ontario Energy Act. The Green Energy Act is not the way we wanted it. We see it as a ploy by the government just to say that they did it. In terms of the energy, we need to stop paying other countries and other provinces from taking our energy. And so we wish to provide it, the energy, instead of selling it to paying other people to take our energy, we'll provide it at a subsidized rate to local businesses.
Thank you. And Todd on a rebuttal.
So there's no doubt in my mind the Green Energy Act is flawed. But at the same time, to make a comment, like we're going to scrap the Green Energy Act and we're going to tear up those contracts and get rid of those wind turbines, there are contractual concerns that really have to be looked into. So the legal due diligence has to be done. It's not so easy just to say that we're going to get rid of them and we're going to scrap it. There is a legal component to this that has to be looked at.
Thank you.
And Monty?
Yep. Monty?
Well, just one final comment on that. The fact of the matter is, the Liberals and NDPs are going to continue building more wind turbines. It is in both. It's in both their platforms. We have to get a handle on this, and you know, we all know in this room about the how it's pitted community against community, family member against family member, and it's driven companies out of Ontario because our energy is too expensive.
Let's go a little more on this topic. Brian with a rebuttal.
There's been chances, folks, already. They could have stopped a bunch of the contracts. I believe it was December 31st. Why didn't anybody? Why didn't anybody do it? Everybody talks a big game, but they could have done it. And the public doesn't know about it, but that's true. Do some research. They could have stopped them recently and stopped. They re-signed them. So I'd warn out on this one, because the people that are up there right now didn't do their job as far as I'm concerned.
Todd Case.
Let's be clear, it's not in our platform. We don't need any more energy. We have an abundance of energy. That's the fact of the matter. So I want to be very clear, that is not part of our platform. Again, we have more than we need, period.
Thank you. Pretty good debate. Let's go to our next question.
Yeah. Next question is for Anthony. And what do you feel, Anthony, is the most important issue for people in Ontario in 2018?
Speaking as a youth, I'm 19 years old, in case any of you didn't know. I think the most difficult thing right now in Ontario is just living. In terms of paying for hydro, paying for housing. For me, when I graduate, I'm going to look for a job, making sure Ontario is more livable for individuals of all social classes and not just for the people in Toronto making a lot of money.
Todd, rebuttal?
So let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen, our healthcare system is in crisis. There's no doubt about it. We have an aging population. We need to tend to the hospital situation we have now. And our party is making this a very big priority during this election to open 2,000 new hospital beds and provide the funding that hospitals need to carry on and be able to serve that aging population. That, to me, is one of the most important things we have to deal with in this election.
All right, thank you. Our next question will be directed to NDP Representative Todd Case. How will you ensure the voice and needs of your riding are heard at Queen's Park?
So as I mentioned in my opening remarks, I've been the mayor of my township for 18 years. I've also been the warden of the county and chair of the Western Wardens Caucus. It's all about communication. I'm a firm believer in getting people in a room around a table to talk about the various issues that affect our community. I've said that I will have a town hall meeting in all four corners of this riding if I'm elected. That's to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you take a true pulse on a community. So I would use that kind of those kinds of communications tools to be able to reach out and talk to the people of the riding.
Brian, on a rebuttal.
I think that as far as it goes, bringing stuff back to the community is the utmost important thing for the Trillium Party. And I wanted to speak about health care. I wanted to kind of cut in on that. And that is about the fact that we want to bring forth a card to stop fraud. And I'm worried that I wasn't going to get it out, but if I get a chance, I'll do it in my close. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Marina?
Okay, and this is for Monty McNaughton. If your leader proposed an idea or program that would not be beneficial for your riding, how would you respond?
Well, I would speak out against that proposal. That's why we have caucus meetings, and I can tell you we've had some pretty aggressive pushback, whether it's this leader or other leaders in the past on certain issues. So I always live by the principle and serve by the principle of listening to people here at home and taking those ideas to Queen's Park. We have 5 offices that serve constituents in Lambton-Kent-Middlesex, including our office at Queen's Park. I start my mornings, I know a number of you were there this week at Roy's Coffee Shop. I start a lot of my mornings at the coffee shop, and I'll tell you, that's where you hear the pulse of the community that you represent. And I have never been shy, sometimes, of being the only conservative to stand up and speak out on an issue, and I believe that, representing the people.
Thank you. Brian, on a rebuttal.
Well, I believe that's true, Monty, and but the problem is all the parties have whips, folks. I don't know if you know what a whip is. If you don't, it's someone who says how you can vote. So no matter what any of the MPPs say, there's somebody who makes that decision. It's not you guys. It just isn't. If it doesn't follow the party line, they're not allowed to vote for it. They don't show up, or they sit on their hands. That's it.
10. All right. Thank you. Our next question is directed at Brian. Much of rural Ontario has an older demographic than urban places, making services for an aging population a priority for many. Does your party have a proposed policy agenda that it would implement relevant to these specific geographies?
Yeah, I discussed it earlier, and that's about moving some of, or all, we hope, of the corporate welfare money that's been going out to help the elderly, whether it be in home care visits or opening up more beds for them. It is true, the baby boomer generation is retiring and getting older daily, and the pressure on our healthcare system is huge. And we have to move more money to the front line to help these people. These people have been working their whole lives, and they need to be taken care of, and we're going to make sure of it. We want to open, we're leaning towards mental health as well. We want to open another ministry to deal directly with mental health issues. But as far as the elderly go, it is one of our pillars, and main pillar in our party platform is to take care of the elderly. And you have my commitment that we're going to do that and spend the money on them because they deserve it.
Thank you. We have 2 rebuttals right now. First one to Monty.
Great. Well, we have announced that we would build 30,000 long-term care beds. There hasn't been long-term care investment since 2003 in Ontario as far as bringing new beds online. We feel that that would be the single greatest way to cut hospital wait times across the province. I also wanted to highlight one issue that I fought for very hard. The current Liberal government is funding people in the GTA at a higher amount than they're funding patients in southwestern Ontario, and that's why the Strathroy Hospital has an almost $700 day wait time for hips and knee replacement. It's an injustice to this community.
Thank you. Anthony.
Thank you. Right now, Ontario, Canada, we pride ourselves in our free healthcare, but there are many issues right now. If we look at the long wait times in emergency rooms for specialists and tests and for appropriate long-term care, it's insane. So the Green Party of Ontario, we hope to advance long-term care and home care by monitoring and improving the quality of care in long-term care homes by reducing the wait times for elder care and also increasing funding for home and community care to provide support for people to live at home longer.
So in our platform, we have money for schools, rural schools, hospitals, as well as infrastructure for municipalities. We also have in our platform room for 40,000 new long-term care beds.
Thank you. Marina?
And since our next question was about long-term care beds, we're going to skip that one because you all just answered it. So, yeah, it happens. Yeah. How are you going to fix the hydro system? Oh, this question is for Anthony. Sorry about that. How are you going to fix the hydro system, the highest rates in Canada and North America, and how will you address all of the water wells that have been contaminated by wind turbines? It's a good question for you.
Good question. Two-part question, so I'll answer it in two parts. First of all, I mentioned this already. How is it possible that we're paying other countries to take our energy right now? So the first stance that we'll take is we'll be taking this excess energy and we'll be selling it at much subsidized rate, even free, to local businesses because they deserve it more than other countries. In terms of cheaper rates, Manitoba and Quebec have both agreed to provide cheaper hydro rates than what they currently are right now. Moving on to the water wells, that issue is also completely it's unacceptable. I've seen firsthand eggs cooked within the water, the fact that there's these heavy metals, lead, uranium, that's going into this and going into the families, going to the children that are in this community. So we need that health investigation out there right now, and we need to act early because even if there hasn't been concrete research that has deduced anything, the notion of ingesting lead, the notion of ingesting heavy metals into our families are completely unacceptable, and we need to stop the installation of windmills until we can ensure that this contamination to the water wells is not happening.
Okay, and Brian with a rebuttal first.
I recently went out, there's a medical geologist, Heather Gingrich. I went and had a meeting with Water Wells First and her as well. There's some problems with the water around the turbines. And it seems to me that the Liberal government, through the Ministry of Environment, has been doing a job. Whether it's the right job, who knows? We need a health investigation on it. And we need to get to the bottom of it because there's something there, folks.
And Todd with a rebuttal?
Yes, so we have a plan to return hydro back into public hands with a 30% reduction to individuals in Ontario and eliminating those transfer fees as well. When it comes to the Well Waters First people and the contaminated wells, we were the first party on scene. Our leader visited the sites as well as myself, and we are calling for a health hazard study.
And Monty.
Well, same. We're all in agreement up here. We too, if we're fortunate enough to form government, we will do a health hazard investigation. We've gone one step further, saying that the wind companies will be financially responsible if it's found that they've polluted people's wells. And of course, we're not going to go ahead. There's another wind project slated to be built near Wallaceburg, Otter Creek. We're not going to proceed with that.
All right, and a final rebuttal with Brian.
The Trillium Party platform, you can go online and see it, strictly says the wind companies will be held liable for the removal, and we want to see them taken down. We don't know the unintended consequences of the windmills at turbines at all. We're living with them. So they need to come down, and the Trillium Party is the only party, I believe, that is calling to take them down.
For Todd.
And this one is for Todd Case. Will you and your party commit to gender-based violence strategy introduced in March 2018 and follow through with the fiscal commitments?
So yes, the answer is absolutely yes. We will follow through those commitments, and actually we're even going to put more funding when it comes into this subject. So the answer is absolutely yes.
All right. That was quick. Thank you.
You don't give us a lot of time.
Yeah, you still have 48 seconds if you want.
That's good. Can I get that back on the backside?
We'll figure it out. All right, so the next question is actually a question directed at Monty McNaughton, which is perfect timing because he's up for to answer this first. Mr. McNaughton, you seem like a man whose family is very important to you, and I know you say that you believe in strong families. I do as well, but I think that can mean different things to different people. What does the importance of believing in a strong family mean to you specifically? What doesn't it mean? And we actually have a name on this question. Thank you sincerely. Kara.
Well, I think families are the bedrocks of our communities, and we've focused on in our platform making life more affordable for those families so they can spend more time together, they can build a better family. And for example, our child care policy is the most flexible child care policy that any party has put forward. We're going to offer 75% of child care costs for young families, but they're going to be able to choose. So if they want to bring in someone to help look after the kids, if they want to bring in a babysitter or after-school programs, sports programs, it'll really help those families. The other child care policies that the other parties have put forward are strictly 100% government-run in a government-run classroom. Ours is more flexible.
Thank you. Brian, for a rebuttal.
Family is very important, and again, it's one of our main pillars. It's like the elderly. When you're stressed, and families are stressed to the limit with high gasoline prices, high hydro prices, it causes trouble in the family. And we know that. When things are struggle every day to pay the bills, it hurts your family. That's why we want to reduce all that stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, and right back to you, Brian, for this question. Will you and your party commit to creating a diverse range of housing options that are safe, accessible, and deeply affordable, including emergency shelter beds, transitional and supportive housing, and more permanent housing solutions?
What I can say to that is that the caring for people who can't take care of themselves is in our platform as well, and we believe in it. I believe every candidate for the Trillium Party, including the leader, Bob Yasik, we have conference calls and discuss a broad number of issues, and taking care of the poor is one of them. I talked about creating a Ministry of Mental Health, and if you look out on the streets, I don't know if anybody's noticing with opioid epidemic and all the drugs that are out there from meth, you name it. We have a lot of people who aren't being taken care of out on our streets right now, and the poor. And that is one of our main priorities as well, is to make sure the funding goes. Our poor police, they're out there dealing with this on a daily basis. The cuts have taken those facilities away. We will spend some tax money, I would say, to ensure that those people are helped and taken off the streets and taken care of.
Thank you.
Okay, Todd, with a rebuttal.
So we at the NDP are going to build 65,000 new homes, with a large percentage of those homes going to places like women's shelters. We think it's very important. There's a backlog when it comes to housing, a huge backlog. We think it's very important to produce the housing that these people need.
Thank you. Next question goes to Anthony. Kind of fitting. How old are you again, Anthony? 19. This is about OSAP. All right. OSAP, do you intend on keeping OSAP the way it is, or is reducing funding to this program inevitable?
The cost of living just keep going up. I know, unfortunately, firsthand how important, how much I rely on OSAP. And this is not just me speaking. Everyone at Western, everyone at institutions across Ontario understand this. So we plan to keep and not reduce it. While it is inevitable, as I keep mentioning, the youth of today will be the leaders of tomorrow. If we remove their access to education, remove their accessibility to be able to get good careers, then society as a whole will crumble down. So we do not plan on reducing it in the future ever.
Thank you. Brian, for a rebuttal.
When it comes to OSAP, there's kids out there struggling, and adults as well, trying to pay back. Don't forget, folks, one of our policies about the trades. Like, we're encouraging people to get into the trades. Not everyone has to go into debt, in OSAP debt. They can find a way to, and we want to put some money in to promotion of the trades. And like I say, I'm a union tradesman. I'm an iron worker. I went to college and graduated as an industrial mechanic millwright. I joined the ironworkers, but there's great money to be made in the trades.
Thank you, Brian. Todd Case.
So we believe in our youth, and we know that there's lots of young people that don't have the opportunity to be able to go on to post-secondary education. So we're going to introduce a new plan that's going to be more of a grant-based process. And we're also going to make sure we get rid of the interest on these loans that these young people have now. Because again, it's a real hardship when they come out of school and they start to work, and it seems like half their paycheck is used to pay off student loans. So we're going to invest in our youth with the post-education.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to stay with you, Todd. Lambton-Kent-Middlesex residents rely heavily on major roadways, especially the 401 and 402, for their daily commutes. Will you bring plowing back in-house to ensure that these roadways are properly maintained?
Well, we all know it's been an absolutely disaster this past winter. The contract that this current government has with the company providing the service, the company had some hardship, some financial issues. We didn't know one day to the next sometimes we were going to get service on those 400 series highways. We at the NDP are going to bring that back into public hands so we can rely on that service. We have people that's their job, they're mandated to do it, and we're going to get rid of those contracts such as the one we are experiencing now because frankly it hasn't worked.
And Brian with a rebuttal?
When it comes to roads and highways, it seems like the government of the day has a big tub of cash and they tend to dip into it. We want to make sure that the gas taxes and the things that are collected to fix the roads are used on the roads. And that's one of the things where, as far as accounting for money and where it goes, that's what we want to be done. Instead of, robbing another section to pay for this, we want to make sure that the road and gas tax money and things, all the money brought in for the roads is used for the roads and not for other programs, so the roads get fixed.
Yeah. Okay, and Monty with a rebuttal?
Well, just a couple local initiatives that I think are very much common sense. Adelaide Metcalfe Mayor Curtis Smith has championed digital signs for the 402 to warn drivers in advance. I think that's a common sense approach, doesn't cost a lot of money, as well as putting up snow fencing along the 402 to prevent the drifting and blowing of snow. And thirdly, I think we should be planting more trees along the 402. A lot of experts, local municipal leaders have said the same thing.
Good idea.
Thank you.
That's a good idea.
We might have time for just one more question because we're running out of time and we need about 8 minutes for the gentlemen to have their closing statements. So we'll start this question with Monty. And we have this one from our audience as well this evening, so thank you for that. What will your party do to protect small rural hospitals?
Well, great question. One of the reasons I got into politics was for rural hospitals, Strathroy, 4 counties in Newbury, and Wallaceburg. Job number one, when it comes to healthcare, we have to sit down with our doctors and nurses and PSWs, the frontline workers, and find out how we can better improve our hospitals and find out from them where there's efficiencies to be found so there's more money in frontline healthcare. I've been very, very critical of the current government's bureaucracy building. They created these local health integration networks, the LHINs. They should be scrapped. They've taken $500 million out of frontline healthcare. That's where we can find efficiencies. So when there's fear mongering going on about finding efficiencies, the government is spending $140 billion a year, and a lot of this money is going into bureaucracies, administration. It should be prioritized and put at the frontline patient care.
Thank you. We have Brian on a rebuttal.
Okay, it's a great question, and it is a huge problem. We're at risk, our hospitals in rural communities. That's why I want to get this card thing out. We want to bring in a card that detects fraud. So it's almost like a debit card. So what it does is you go to your doctor, you'll get a receipt in the mail, and you'll know that the procedure you had done, what it costs. You won't pay, OHIP will pay, the taxpayer will cover it. But the thing is you can detect fraud with it because you'll get the procedure. If you didn't get it, then you'll know. You can call that in, and that stops people from using your health card, and we can issue you a new card so we can find out and costs of hospital procedures as well.
Thank you. Todd Case.
So we're going to increase funding for hospitals 5.3% because there's a need. We all understand when we go to the hospital, we look at the infrastructure, we look at the crumbling buildings, we look at the lack of beds. We're also going to up the bed count, 2,000 beds right off the bat, folks. Listen, these rural hospitals are very, very important to rural communities. They really are the cornerstone of our communities, along with rural schools. So it's very important that we make the proper investment to keep those hospitals in a good state of repair and available for all of us.
Thank you. Anthony on a rebuttal. Anthony.
We hear way too often about a lot of small education, a lot of small hospitals being amalgamated and created into bigger hospitals. And sure, some people say this reduces inefficiencies, this saves money, but at what cost? At the people who live here who are trying to get the healthcare that they need. So the Green Party is committed to developing a healthcare capacity plan to reopen hospital beds, operating rooms, and services based on population's need for care. And beyond that, we hope to support special public transit services for rural residents to access healthcare should that not be possible.
Thank you.
And time for the closing statements now, if you can believe it already. So we're going to start with the other end of the table now. And Brian Everett, you have 2 minutes with the Trillium Party.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming and the Chamber of Commerce for hosting. I guess in my close, I'd like to say, take consideration into what you're doing when you vote as far as following the same lines. We have a really good chance of a minority government in this election, and it's starting to develop that way each and every day. It's getting closer and closer to being a minority. As far as not having a party whip, it would give Lambton-Kent-Middlesex an advantage to have someone like a Trillium Party candidate in the legislature. Because let's say that there's a bill that comes up, I could be wheeling and dealing as far as to get stuff back for whichever way the parties in power want me to vote. So I would bring back bills and issues to the community, and what we have is a card vote. It's a card. It would be issued to everyone in the riding. And you keep half that card with a serial number, and you put your vote down. It's called referendum, and we have it. That's what one of our policies is. We actually listen to the people. So if you want to have your say, a Trillium vote is the way to go. It's true democracy. These other parties have whips. You can ask till you're blue in the face, folks, to have something done. And if the party doesn't want it, no matter how good the MPP is, if they're from the big three, you're not getting your way. And that's what's going on. It's not working. We're 315 plus billion, $315,000 million is what it is. That's crazy. How did we get there? If the system's working, how did we get there? So please give me a vote. Have a consideration for what our policies are, and vote for Brian Everett in the Trillium Party on June 7th.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for being here this evening. We appreciate it. Now the closing statements from Monty McNaught.
Well, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting tonight, and the moderators for keeping us on time and keeping everything calm for the candidates tonight. I want to thank Brian, Todd, Anthony, and Mike Redan for putting their name forward in this election. Lambton-Kent-Middlesex is the largest riding in Southern Ontario. It's actually larger than Prince Edward Island. So for all of the candidates, everyone is working hard. Look, I think I've been clear tonight. Our focus is on fixing the energy mess, the hydro mess in Ontario, creating well-paying jobs in the private sector, getting government finally living within their means. Ryan mentioned it, but every man, woman, and child in Ontario is responsible today for $26,000 of provincial debt through no fault of their own, but because politicians have been spending way beyond their means. And then lastly, we need to make life more affordable for families in our province. They've been stretched very thin over the last number of years. They need that relief, and a PC government will deliver on all these commitments. It's been a pleasure and a true honor to represent you at Queen's Park. I've tried my best to take your views from home to Queen's Park and fight on behalf of the communities and families I represent. So thank you very much.
Thank Thank you, Monty. And closing remarks from Todd Case with the NDP.
Well, thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is probably the most important election we're having here in Ontario right now, probably in the last 50 years. You have one party that talks about privatization and talks about saving money. You got another party that talks about practical things in everybody's life, the NDP. We know we have a crisis in the healthcare system. And ladies and gentlemen, I could sit up here and tell you that it's not going to take money to fix it, but I'd be lying to you. We all know that our healthcare system in Ontario, especially in rural Ontario, is broken. So it's going to take an investment. It's going to take money to make this system right again. And why should we out here in rural Ontario, why should we settle for second best? Why should we take a back seat to the big cities? So again, this election comes down to what's important to the Ontarian voters. Where do you stand? Do you stand with a conservative leader like Mr. Ford, who wants to privatize everything, who doesn't come clean and clear with a real platform, a costed platform? Or do you fall on the side of somebody like the NDP? Whether you like our platform or not, it's a costed platform. It really is. It's a platform, a whole platform with something in it for almost everybody in Ontario. And one person said, how are you going to pay for it? I've explained how we're going to pay for it. It's time the most wealthiest corporations start paying their fair share. They're making record-breaking profits, ladies and gentlemen. It's not going to be that big a deal at the end of the day for those people. And for folks that make over $220,000 a year, it means 1% more in taxation. So folks, really, in all honesty, this election, more than any election that I can remember, and I'm 53 years of age, there's a real choice to be had for Ontarians. You can go with the privatization of Mr. Ford, and he talks about privatization, he talks about saving money. Well, let's face it, the healthcare budget is 40% of the overall Ontario budget. So when you're starting to cut, you're cutting healthcare. So again, rural schools, healthcare, infrastructure is important to me. We've laid it out tonight. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good night.
Thank you, Todd. And last but certainly not least, representing the Green Party, Anthony Lee.
Thank you very much. I always seem to end off these things. Ontario is really not easy to live in right now. Talk about healthcare, education, hydro rates, housing, just to list a few. I've talked to many community members who are very worried about themselves and about their children. And honestly, I'm a child of 2 parents, and I'm very worried at living in this area right now as well. The good news is that there are solutions for a way forward. The real issue is that these solutions require political commitment that stretches for at least a 4-year election cycle. It's the type of leadership the Green Party is committed to providing. But at the end of the day, all 4 candidates here today want to represent the riding, and we're here for the betterment of Lambton-Kent-Middlesex. All of you have come out to hold us accountable for everything to better this riding, and that is what is truly important. My name is Anthony Lee, and I stand for the GPO's values as a candidate, but more importantly, as a youth. I would appreciate your vote on June 7th. So thank you to the hosts, thank you to the candidates, and thank you all for coming, and have a good weekend.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a round of applause for your candidates for Lambton-Kent-Middlesex in the provincial election. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We do appreciate it. Good luck on June 7th. Thank you to all of you for being here at the Strathroy Senior Centre. I want to thank Rogers TV, the Chamber of Commerce for hosting Lorena and myself. Thank you for being here, and we appreciate your attendance. Don't forget, you really don't have a voice unless you put your ballot in, so make sure you vote on June 7th, and we will see you soon. Thank you and good night.